Welcome back to Spiritual Insurgency. I'm Jason Lupo with my very special guest today, former counselor, now coach, helping people recover from persecution, which is an awesome topic and an awesome. There must not be too many people in that industry. But anyways, I haven't even said his name, Jayson Graves.
Thank you for having me, Jason.
So, how many people are in the industry of persecution recovery?
Great question. I don't know really anyone, honestly. I'm just figuring it out as I go. But, it's just something where I've been through this thing. I understand it, what it's like to go through persecution, to lose some things, to, um, as it's called sometime, have the experience of sort of being canceled in a way. And ultimately, that's kind of a bogus term, but like everybody gets that when you say that. And it's just about helping the folks that have been through some things that really need some support and to get their lives back and to, get their feet on the ground and redeem the whole experience in a positive way. So,
So, the reason why Jason is here, this is a funny story, is Tom Hamner, and actually Jason is going to be on Tom's show a little bit later, but Tom Hamner does his show out of our studio as well. He's a good friend of mine, January 6er, and he runs a show called Entrapped, and he talks about the government entrapment that takes place, or that took place during January 6th. Tom was jailed as a result of January 6th, even though he never stepped foot inside the Capitol. And he's brought on a ton of people to tell their story and share their story of their J6 incidents as well. But in the process of Tom working with all these J6ers, he came across Jayson Graves at a event.
yeah, down in Phoenix, the America Fest put on by Turning Point USA. Great event. I see this dude and I'm like looking at all of his stuff and I'm like, wow, like what's going on for you? Tell me about what's going on here. He's like, well, I'm a J6er. I'm like, really? First one I ever met. And just very, very like sincere dude, as you know. And then he's telling me, oh, like, I'm from Colorado Springs. I'm like, get out of town. Like, like I'm from there, like it was just great. And we just stayed in touch. I just began to pray for him and check in on him and just say, hey, how's it going? And eventually got a chance to share my story with him. And then the next thing I know, out of nowhere, you're calling me on my phone. I'm like, we haven't talked in at least 10, maybe 15 years, it feels like. And I'm like, Jason Lupo. And you're like, guess who I'm with? Tom Hammer. Like, get out. And so, wow, it was just wild.
Yeah, Tom walks in the door and he goes, yeah, I just got off the phone with Jayson Graves. I go, Jayson Graves? He goes, yeah. I go, he's in my phone. I know Jason. He goes, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I've known Jason for years.
Yeah.
So I just start calling. I'm like, I wonder if he'll answer.
Yeah.
Sure enough, he picked up the phone and I was like,
Yeah.
well, I got to run and do Tom's show, but I'll call you back later. And we spoke that night and started telling him what we were doing here and just asked if he would share his story. And so that
Yeah.
over the course of about 3 months of prayer and trying to figure out how to make this work, now here we are in the studio.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful that you invited me, man. And what a divine appointment. Years ago, we tried to collaborate on some things with your swimming team. You'd asked me to help with coaching, and I wasn't able to at that time. So it's really cool to be able to work together now. And it's such a blessing that like our foundation and our supporters, they just really kicked in to make this happen, and it's just been amazing. So yeah,
Yeah.
grateful to be here.
So I want to talk about the godly response to persecution because that's what this story is all about. And this is a story that Tom is facing. It's a story that uh, many Christians across the world are facing. And that's the story of being persecuted by their own government, by their own people, sometimes by their own church, and those that are around them in the office and whatever. And so, what's the godly response to persecution? And it's something that I don't think is talked about enough. I wish that pastors would address this situation and address persecution far more often than they do. But it's not pretty. It doesn't wrap up nicely with a bow on top. It's not something that anybody wants to really talk about, but it's something that needs to be talked about. And so, sure, it doesn't give you a warm, fuzzy feeling. And it's really hard because oftentimes it goes back to forgiveness and to, uh, you know, softening your heart to the change that can take place in people that have persecuted you. I think back, I told this story to my swim team several times of Paul and Saul's transformation. And I asked them the question at the end. I said, "Do you have a heart that is so hardened that you would be unwilling to see the change of Paul?" Because here's Saul going around killing Christians.
Yeah.
One day, he leaves a stoning, and on his way on the road, he's blinded by the Lord and changes. And next thing you know, he reappears as a Christian and spends the rest of his life wrote majority of the New Testament. I mean, the man is a very prominent figure in Christianity, but his background is that of persecuting Christians. And so when we look at this and we start talking about the story of what's the godly response, we have to look inside our own hearts. And I think that's one of the hardest things to do. And it's one of the hardest things to talk about is to look at somebody and be like, even though that person hurts you, it's time to look deep inside and forgive.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, our thing is if we're truly believers, if we're truly walking like according to how the Bible instructs us to walk, blessed are you when you're persecuted. What? That's counterintuitive. Blessed. And it's taken me a while to get used to and comfortable with that feeling. It's not easy to think of this as a blessing, to be honest. But we're blessed. Also, we're not the ones being persecuted. He's the one that's being persecuted. Thirdly, we're supposed to love those who persecute us, and we're supposed to pray for our enemies. So pray for those who persecute you. Love your enemies, right? We've heard all these things, but this is the opportunity, and it's going to happen more and more. And ultimately, this is about the persecutor's salvation. It's about their soul. So if I get caught up in me and defending me and all this kind of stuff, then I'm really missing the mark. If I get caught up in being a victim, I'm missing the mark. Their pain is more important. Aren't we supposed to treat others' needs more important than our own? That's straight out of scripture, right? Not always easy to do. In fact, well, the first thing is, aside from loving, we have to take responsibility wherever we can. So even in persecution, you have to look at, well, okay, what can I own? All right. So even though these things that they're slandering me about, where could I look at how I could protect myself? Because if you have a good name, it says in Proverbs, it's better than silver or gold. To be esteemed, more important than great riches, right? Well, I learned that at the time, I wasn't really 2016. I had my hands full with, my wife's disability advancing, and then, like the having small kids at that time and having a full practice. I kind of didn't want to be bothered by this stuff, nor did I really want to be associated with it. I felt like perpetuating or talking about these lies was just being a participant in the lie. Well, the thing I realized recently, though, is that if you have a good name, that's one thing. But just like silver or gold, you have to protect it. So at that time, I didn't want to be bothered by protecting my good name. I wanted to just deal with it best I could and move on. Well, that took some maturity to realize that, okay, now it's not only important to protect your name, but also just like, nobody buys silver and gold and leaves it out on the kitchen cabinet, kitchen counter. They put it in a safe. They protect it. And secondly, we're supposed to rebuke evil and call what's wrong, wrong. It's wrong to lie about people. It's wrong to slander people. When you lie about someone, it hurts you and your own soul. Whether you're a person making an allegation or you're a person who's parlaying that and spinning it to other things and creating other narratives with it. So those people are in pain. Our job is to pray for them, to be kind to them and not retaliate in response, and to go on and live our lives and redeem the whole experience just like we are right now.
Yeah, I think that y- I can't remember who said the quote, but the quote goes something like, If you have no enemies, then you've never done anything of any value in your
Mm.
life." Right? Like when you work for God, when you do God's mission on this earth, you will be persecuted. It's not a question; it's a
Yeah.
guarantee.
It's not an if, it's a when.
Yes, and it's spelled out in the Bible. You will be persecuted,
Yeah.
and so what that looks like for certain people is vastly different
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. And I
And
wouldn't have chosen my persecution, and I don't think anybody else would have chose theirs. But when it comes to following Jesus, persecution is part of the proposition.
yeah, and I ran for office. That's if
Mm.
you don't want to be persecuted, don't run for office. I can
Yeah.
promise you that. But the mailers that came out, and there was a $250,000 spent in mailers and in trashing my name
Right.
that was spent just trying to destroy my reputation. All of this at the same time that I had other persecution going on because
Yep.
when you step out, the attacks become so much bigger.
Yeah.
And so here I am, beginning of this campaign, and within the first couple weeks of the campaign, my card completely dies, engine fails, and then onto that, then there's some other false reports to local authorities. I think they were politically motivated to try to attack my business. Um, the story just continues, and the persecution just grew more and more as the election drew nearer and nearer.
Right.
And I think that's what we continue to see when we have believers that step out. The persecution doesn't go away, and so here you are, Jason. You're trying to help people again, and you're seeing a rise back of the persecution. Hopefully, at this point, do you feel like you're better prepared to handle that situation today than you were back in 2016?
Yeah, I think so because now, like I said, I am taking responsibility for back then I could have protected myself better. I could have protected myself not for the sake of like self-protection as the focus, but more like you have to protect your name, you have to protect what you've created because those things provide for your family and things like that. If what you're doing to help people is harmed and tarnished, then so is sometimes your ability to help the people who need your help. So like I remember, here's a story like as the culture changed, I started to realize that uh, I was going to become more and more of a target. I had been testifying in the state capitol and in D.C. and other state capitals against these quote unquote anti-conversion therapy ban bills, and so I was becoming more of a target as we were defeating these bills, especially here in Colorado. And I was getting harassment at my front door, on my business and home addresses with negative Google reviews, and this one crazy person yeah, showed up my door. People stalked me and they came to my place of business, and there's probably things that have been done that I don't even know about. Death threats over the telephone. It's been really, really, crazy at times. But at the end of the day, like my focus was always on just helping the people that I'm supposed to help. Well, as I saw the signs increasing, I bought these cameras because I thought, well, anyone can say anything about anyone. So why don't I just start taping with clients' permission, of course, all of my sessions in office, because most of my work was done like over the phone and stuff. But I did have an office, and would see folks here and there. So I'll just start taping that and putting that in my disclosure statement, get the authorization beforehand that if you want to see me, everything's taped. Well, I bought the cameras, but I kind of believed these ideas that I'm not technical enough to set these up, or I don't have enough time, or, oh, don't worry about it. If you just treat your clients well, nobody would have any reason to lie about you. Where Michelle Bachmann, the former U.S. Congresswoman from Minnesota, her husband was doing similar work as I, and he had activists come into his office with videotapes posing as clients, video cameras, trying to drum up God knows what, about him. So I didn't follow those promptings. I didn't act in the most responsible way, but I can just take responsibility for that now, and others can learn from my mistakes.
Yeah, the number one tool of the devil is doubt,
Yeah.
right? And it's doubt to the point where when you have somebody that's attacking you, and all of a sudden your family and your friends, those that you thought supported you, go, well, maybe he did do something like that,
Right.
right? That's the doubt that's creeping in. That's the doubt that the devil's trying to create, and through human beings, through activists, right? Our battle is not with flesh and blood, but with powers and principalities of darkness that are manifested through people.
Right.
People are manifestations of what they put into their brain, what they believe, what their soul believes. And so we see things like this.
Yeah.
And also when we make decisions, right? Like nobody would ever do that to me, right? That's that doubt that's like you have in the back of your head that you need to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And even though you're doing absolutely nothing wrong, there's
Mhm.
that thought that somebody's going to come after you.
Well, yeah, and I think the doubt is really important because it's rooted in fear. You know, like I was afraid of things like, okay, if I deal with these things, because I had an inkling when the false allegation came out that I was gonna just need to go to the media and just say, hey, listen, I need to call attention to what the state licensing board is doing and the improprieties. Because, like, I felt like I'd do that and I could protect myself and others by doing that, but I didn't follow that because I was like, I'm afraid of being associated with this. I'm afraid of missing out on more important, other fun things. Like, I used to be a semi-professional triathlete. It was way more fun for me to compete in triathlon and those kind of things than, deal with these kind of shenanigans. Um, and now, though, I look back and I was like, well, I missed an opportunity there that now, 10, 9 years later, I'm getting the opportunity to do the same thing. Sometimes the moment's not right. Sometimes your maturity is not up to par. You don't have the wherewithal. And God's given me another opportunity to do that because if I can help another person out by, yeah, protecting yourself and preparing for the persecution, that's wise. You don't have to go through the same thing. You can learn from my mistakes. It's much more efficient to learn from other people's mistakes than your own. And then I'm participating in edifying the body of Christ that way,
Yeah, and it's really hard to be 90% bought in, which I think is kind of what you're describing, right? Like I believe in this, but I'm not 100% bought in because as soon as there's any doubt in yourself and in your beliefs, it quickly crumbles, right? If you ever talk to somebody, if you want to play devil's advocate against somebody that's 90% pro life,
Mm,
you can absolutely destroy them in seconds,
mm.
right? If they're not 100% pro life, then all of a sudden the crevices and the cracks that are created just blow up because the belief really isn't there. And so when you stand up and you go, okay, I'm going to fight for this, if you're not 100% sold on what you're fighting for, the crevices and cracks that are left that aren't filled in, one little earthquake, one little shake, and those cracks become massive. And that's kind of where we have to be when it comes to like Christianity, where it comes to what we're fighting for, is being 100% bought in.
Yeah.
Because if you're not, that doubt quickly expands those cracks.
Yeah, it really does. And I think this is the important message along with love your enemy is, hey, if you've been persecuted, take responsibility for yourself and get some help. You need support. I'm here to do that. We give free coaching all the time to folks that have been through these kinds of losses and are trying to grieve it, get through it and rebuild and find the redemption. Why did God allow this to happen to me? He's a redemptive God. He doesn't let these things happen for no good reason. And so, like, I'm really grateful for the foundation that we're part of and what we're building to be able to do that, and the support from the donors that we've gotten has been absolutely tremendous. So
So, last thoughts on godly response to persecution.
we'll take responsibility, love your enemy, look for the redemption. For me, redemption looks different for everybody, right? These are just skills I happen to have. I never seek the microphone, I never seek the spotlight or the camera. Those are just things that I've gotten fortunate to be able to do, and I know how to do them. But not everybody's going to be called to this same thing. Your redemptive ministry, if you will, may be to just your spouse and helping them recover through this. You may be to just your family or your a person in your life, a neighbor, a family member, or it could be through your work. God has different like levels of redemption. Very few of us are like, what I would call cultural redeemers to have this sort of big microphone in your face and, a lot of people listening at one time. So you don't need to be intimidated. God will meet you right where you're at, and he loves you right where you're at. And so that's my message.
Yeah, and I imagine that this took a huge toll on your family as well, and that sometimes that's harder, right? It's one thing to like look at persecution of yourself and be like, okay, like I can make this through, but those that hurt for you,
Yeah.
it's oftentimes harder for them to recover than it is for yourself to recover. Would you agree with that?
Oh, for sure. You know, like that's just part of being family members though, is you get to experience collateral damage. And so like we've raised our kids that like, at the end of the day, we're Christians first, okay? We're going to serve the Lord. If we have losses along the way, then it's just a matter of how he's going to redeem those losses. And we have to trust him for that. So the pain is a teacher. So yeah, you go through pain and loss. We all go through loss in life. It's a teacher. It's something that we can use to our advantage. God didn't do this to us. The activists didn't do this to us. They did it for us. So,
That's groundbreaking way of thinking right there. The activists did it for us.
right.
That's a hard concept to, I think, get behind. So,
Yeah.
well, when we come back, we're going to talk about the industry as a whole, the counseling therapy industry as a whole,
Mm.
and its response to unwanted same-sex attraction and the LGBTQ alphabet mafia,
Yeah.
as we would call it here on this show. Hang with us. God bless.
Sounds good.